Good morning. I think we're all aware that we're in an unprecedented situation for manufacturers right now. Everyone's scrambling to reconfigure their systems in a hurry, and we've had a number of client calls, and we've put together sort of a mitigation plan that we'd like to share with you so we can help you get speed to reconfiguration. And this will work whether you're expanding or contracting your manufacturing work hours. Okay, so as time allows, we're going to continue doing sessions like this. So if you like what you see, we'll add you to our mailing list. To get onto our mailing list, please email Jill, Jill, at Control+M.solutions. And at the end of this session, we'll advise you what our next session is going to be on. Please share these with anybody. This is not limited to our clients. We want to do this for the good of the community as a whole. And when we get a moment, we'll post this on our website. Just right now, we're dealing with client issues. So today we're going to talk about a quick response methods to expand or contract your manufacturing work hours. My name is Patty Nowak. I'm the owner of Control+M Solutions. I've been working with Plex since 2007, been a Plex partner, started my company in 2013. That's about as far as I'm going to go because today is not about trying to sell you anything. Today is about teaching you things. So if you want to know more about us, get our website up. Today we're going to talk about the impact of the work center calendar and the shift setup on job scheduling. And we're going to take a repurposed PowerPoint from last year's PowerPlex to basically review for everybody what the shift and the work center calendar does. They're going to switch over to Plex. We're going to review how to change these items and how to reschedule your job operation dates. I'd like this to be interactive, so if you have questions about what we're seeing, please feel free to dive in. So first we'll cover the shift in the work center calendar impact on jobs. For us, the best way to train people on the impact is to set up a part and use that part to describe the impact of these changes to you. So we created a fake part called a single step part. You all know nobody really has a lot of single step parts, but in this case, we're telling the system that we have 1 hour of setup and 1,000 pieces per hour can be run. And we're going to look at the impact on a job for 30,000 pieces. That would take 31 hours to run because we have 30,000 pieces divided by 1,000 pieces per hour and then add 1 hour of setup. We're going to consume 31 hours of capacity, and the Plex scheduling system is going to say, tell me when this needs to be done, and work backwards to calculate the start date in an infinite scheduling system. Finite scheduling works a little bit differently. We'll get into that a little bit later. In addition to that part, we also have 2 shift cycles set up. We have a shift cycle called First Only, that is Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. And then we have a 2 shift cycle that's Monday through Friday, 7 to 3 and 3 to 11. So we have in essence doubled our work center capabilities in the 2 shifts versus the 1 shift. These shifts are visible in the work center calendar, and you can tell now that I've repurposed this from last year's PowerPlex because I've got a May 2019 calendar up. So in our world here, this work center is up for every day of the month with the exception of Memorial Day. But for simplicity, what we're going to do is tell Plex that our job is due on Friday the 24th. The simplest way to look at how Plex schedules jobs is to ignore nights and weekends. That way you can learn in great detail how things work and then apply that knowledge to things like days off, weekends, shift breaks, etc. If I have a 31-hour job for this 30,000 pieces, and remember that came from this slide up here, if I have a 31-hour job, the system is going to say, in order to be complete by the 24th, I had better start on the 20th at 8 a.m. And the system does that by taking my 31-hour requirement and dividing it by my available number of hours per day. So in essence, this is telling me I really need about 4 days to complete this job. But when I go through my work center calendar and I change to 2 shifts a day, you can see my work center calendar went from 1 green line to 2 green lines here. My calculated start date now goes from the morning of the 20th to the evening of the 21st. So 2 hours on the 21st, all day on the 22nd, and the remainder will finish up to get us to be able to ship by the 24th. So you can see the impact of the start date very directly by changing these due dates. Now, the really important thing to remember here is this is the date that drives your components in for MRP. The system says, in order to be successful, I need to have my component parts here by the start date. So these start dates are very important to your scheduling engine to keep them up to date and keep them healthy. So the impact of the Workcenter calendar, changing it, does not go back in time and reschedule jobs that have already been created. The Workcenter calendar and the shifts are taken into consideration in two places: job additions and job rescheduling. We're going to talk a little bit later about how to do that in a very quick method. It's not important that you keep your work calendar up to date daily. For example, today's Wednesday. If you're going to work on Saturday, it's not that important to go in and add a shift on Saturday morning because it's not going to reschedule your jobs anyway. What I would do from a simplicity standpoint is just say, well, if I'm at 108% capacity, I know I can work Saturday and work that capacity down. The system will allow you to overschedule, right? So if you just sort of manage that mentally, but it is important for big pushes. So for example, we have a client who does a lot of work for Harley-Davidson, and they push their supply chain very hard January, February, and March. So that customer puts extra shifts on the weekends, January, February, and March, because they plan on working them. Our advice to clients is always keep your Workcenter calendar updated as quickly as you can. So for example, if your 2021 holiday schedule comes out in October, when that schedule comes out, go update that Workcenter calendar for days off and if there are shift changes in the future. So questions about how the Workcenter calendar or the shifts impact your job start dates. All right, let's go over to Plex. The first thing we're going to do in Plex is we're going to look in Classic first, and then we're going to look in UX. The preponderance of our customers are either still in Classic or working on the UX transition. So my goal will be to show everything in Classic and then show it in UX, and that'll help those of you who are considering transition to see how easy it can be. So we have shifts and we have shift cycles. A shift is the start and end time of a given day's work with breaks and lunches in the middle. You can see in here that I don't have breaks and lunch. This is a test PCM that we let our customers play in. So we're not too concerned about that. You probably have breaks and starts and ends on yours. The shifts themselves are associated together in what's called a cycle. And in the cycle, we select which days we are working which shifts. Those shifts are then associated, the shift cycles are then associated with the Workcenter list. So if I look at my Workcenter list, we can see here that we have different shift cycles associated. A lot of these are standard 5-8 hours first only, and we have busy times, and we have quite a few work centers to look at. Let's shift over to UX, and you can see my shifts are the same here, first 8 hour, and my shift cycles are visible by clicking on the shift cycle button, and I have multiple shift cycles. We've originally talked about the first only shift, and you can see it's Monday, first shift only. These shifts are associated with the Workcenter list. Again, we looked at this in Classic. In this case, I have the first only shift. The Workcenter calendar does a beautiful job of illustrating what hours are available on a Workcenter. This Workcenter AV Cure 01 is a 7x24 Workcenter. If I go into this Workcenter called AV Cure 01, I can change this shift by clicking the Edit button in UX, scrolling down to the shift cycle, and I can change this to any of my existing shifts. I'm going to change this to a 2-shift cycle. When I click Apply, we will see when I search on the calendar, we've got now only Monday through Friday and 2 shifts. To illustrate this in Classic, we'll start with the Workcenter AV Cure 2. It is also on a busy schedule, 7x24. And if we look at the work center list, for AV Cure 2, if I click on here, I can change the schedule this way as well from shift time. And I'll change this one to a standard 5x8 and click Update. Once that's updated, the work center calendar will update automatically. So that's how to change the shifts on the work center. Now, many of you have a lot of work centers. So the real challenge here is to change all that clicking one at a time would take a really long time, wouldn't it? And that's a lot of non-value added work. One of our clients said, well, why wouldn't I just change my shift cycle? For some clients, that might be a really good choice. Just say, well, in this case, I'm only working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll just remove Thursday and Friday and change the shift cycle. That's terrific if you have just a few shift cycles, and as long as you really properly document what you were doing today. We're all very hopeful that when we come out of this virus that we'll be able to get back to manufacturing operations as normal. So we like to look at every potential change, not only how easy it is to do, but how easy it is to undo. So that's the first option. You could change your shift cycles. For us, we're going to create a new shift cycle, and we're going to call it COVID-19. So I'm going to click the Add Shift Cycle here. And from a permissions perspective, if you don't see this button, contact your Plex administrator. I'm going to call this shift cycle COVID-19. You can call it whatever you want to. I have a special little Excel treat I'm going to share with everybody later. That's why I'm calling it this. And I'm going to tell the system I'm working Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday first shift. And that's all that I'm working. And I now have a shift cycle available for COVID-19 that says I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 7 to 3. Moving over to UX in the shift cycle, I can now see that I will scroll up here and say show all filters. And if I look for my shift cycle of COVID-19, it's right here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If I want to add a shift cycle, I click the Add button here. And again, from a permissions perspective, talk to your Plex administrator about the action to add a shift cycle. So we're going to go to the Work Center list here. And as you can see, we've got a download button here. This download button is a great little button, and it gives me some good information. But what it doesn't give me is all the files for upload that we need, or all the fields for upload that we need. So that's a great button, but it's not going to do what we need here. We need to do an upload button. So we had Veronica Meyer on our team build a SQL query that would actually allow you to pull all the information needed for the work centers. We'd be happy to share the SQL code with you. In the Classic, you're simply going to go to the stored procedure screen. You're going to copy in this code, click Execute, and you'll see it's pulling all the information that's needed for the upload template file. I'm going to select Print and Export to CSV and Open to get this file up and running. So this is an exact replica of the Workcenter upload template as it exists today. The first thing that we are going to suggest folks to do is, number one, make sure none of your work centers have leading zeros. If they do have leading zeros on them, you're going to want to open this up in a different method than direct from Plex to save that data. If you need help with that, let me know. We're first going to save a copy of this file. And the reason we want to save a copy of this is because we want to be able to go back to it as needed. So I'm going to call this my original work center schedule. Now that I've had a copy of that saved, I'm going to work on my file that we'll be using to change our shifts from their current status to COVID-19. The first column in here is either a record, add, or update. If this field says add, Plex wants to add a new work center. And it'll say, hey, add a new work center called 10, and it's going to fail on the update. So we have to change this from add to update. And when I change this, if I double click on this little square here, Plex will copy that word update all the way down for me, very simple. Now, I'm going to recommend that you only change the shift cycle with this update And you don't change other things, because if you start removing additional data or changing other fields, it will update those. Another warning for you, we did find a little challenge with this, with this export. We had a couple work centers in our original PCN that would not download. We put in a case to Plex, and it was because we had work centers that were created before we moved to finite scheduling. So it's very important that you look at this data. Take a peek and really take a look at this work center data and make sure that all your work centers are listed here, and do a scan for data correctness. And do this in test also. Now I'm going to change my shift cycle on everything to COVID-19. This must match my shift name exactly. If it does not match exactly, I've got COVID space 19, my upload will fail. So if this is COVID-19, that will not work. This will work. Now you might be thinking to yourself, I can just click here and copy that down, right? Look what happens when I double click using that feature. Plex thinks you want to incrementally go up by one number each time. I'm going to have to do a Control+C and a Control+V to make sure they all say COVID-19. I'm going to save this as a separate file. Remember, keeping my original so that I can go back to life as it is. This is going to be my COVID-19 updated work center schedules. So now my file is ready for upload. It's a very simple upload. In the Work Center list in Classic, there's an upload button. We're going to go partially through the upload here in Classic, then we're going to complete the entire upload in UX. I'm going to click the upload button. I'm going to browse for my file, and I'm going to look for my COVID-19 updated Work Center schedule CSV file and click open. Plex is going to first validate the records, and if I were to click upload here, it would upload the records for me. I'm not going to do that in Classic because I'm going to take this opportunity to do the upload in UX. You can see nothing has changed here. In our Work Center list in UX, we're going to do an upload, and the upload is in just a little bit different place here. Upload, select my upload file, and in this case, I can drag and drop if I want to. That's one really nice feature about the UX. I'm going to drag this from my desktop, and once I drop it here, Plex is going to validate those records, and it's going to say, hey, they look good. It's going to tell me if I have any problems, and click my submit button to finalize. Now, before I click submit, all those schedules, I guess I'm not able to move that. Before I click submit, all those schedules were standard, 2 shifts, etc. You're going to see now when this is done, Plex is going to change them to COVID-19. My shift cycle is now COVID-19. So before I started, remember we looked at this lovely Work Center calendar. Let's click search, and you'll see that it has updated. And the same thing in the Classic. We click search, and everything is updated to the COVID-19 update. So a couple warnings again, don't change anything but your shift. If you change anything else, you are in danger of damaging your setup. Another warning, make sure you do this in test first. Take the time to validate that your data are accurate. Remember that we at Control+M deal with plenty of customers who have very many different configurations. So it's really up to you to make sure that your data are going to be accurate when we're done. Okay? Let's take a look at job rescheduling now. So in the system, we have a couple different jobs that existed before the shift setup change. We're going to start in Classic. We're going to look at job number 207. And when I look at job number 207, this was created when I had a different job. I had a different Work Center shift associated. All I have to do to change this is go into the job operations, click the reschedule button, and say yes. I'm going from a start of 6/19 to a start of 6/15. So it's a pretty easy change. In UX, go to Job Manager, bring your job up. Simply click on the job, and then click on Job Routing, click on Operations Management, and click the Reschedule button. So we're starting here on 6/18. When I reschedule here, I'm starting as early as June 3rd. Plex has some other options for reschedule, for example, Job Mass Update. But remember, Job Mass Update, I could say, show me all the due date and end dates, will only change your operation dates if you change a job due date. The Reschedule button takes the existing job date and reschedules the operation. Job Mass Update in Classic changes a job due date. When a job due date is changed, it will reschedule. Simply clicking Update without changing the job due date will not make a change there. In UX, it's called Job Bulk Update. We do have a list of screen name changes between Classic and UX. If you're interested in that, let us know. It's probably not inclusive. It is a list that we have been gathering over time to capture those differences. One last thing I want to show you is where we find the stored procedures in UX. It's in the SQL development environment, and we're simply going to create a new query with the code that I give you. And when we execute this, the export just looks a little bit different, but it's mostly the same. It's just a little different methodology of interacting with Excel. So now that we've been through all of those, any questions about what we've shown today? Our next session, which is tentatively scheduled for April 8th, is harnessing the power of the document control system. Again, free training for all Plex community users. We'll be talking about UX and Classic, best practices, and really making sure you're getting the most out of your DCS. So I want to thank you for attending today.